The Khaleej Times was the United Arab Emirates' first English-speaking newspaper, founded nearly 50 years ago. With the advent of the internet and multimedia, they branched into video. On ICE, we're very pleased to see 3 new TV series produced by the Khaleej Times, looking at the United Arab Emirates, who made the country, who keep the country ticking, and who are going to take the country into the next century. With me today is Michelle Diven. Welcome to the show. Welcome to this flight.
Thanks for having me.
You've created 3 TV series. The first, Autobiography, interviews with people who have really been there throughout the last 50 years as the country has built itself. Tell me about some of the people you've interviewed on the program.
Well, I think, first of all, it's remarkable to see the transformation of the UAE over the past 50 years, and to be able to speak to people who have not only shaped, but have been shaped by the evolution of the UAE and how developed it's become. People who can talk about the pre-unification days, and then the cosmopolitan that we know today is something that's very rare as a journalist. It's rare to speak to people who went through the conception and establishment of a country, and who have seen it really become a modern cosmopolitan and a global center for tourism and innovation. So Autobiography is really special because of the people that we were able to speak to on a very personal level. So we have 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿, who is the advisor to the UAE president, but he was also the advisor and personal translator of the late 𝐵𝐸𝐻. May he rest in peace, the founding father of the UAE. And to hear the personal accounts from him, I asked him how he describes the UAE, how he describes the vision and then execution that he saw in front of his eyes, and he said it's a miracle. He goes into great detail and length to share his personal accounts of 𝐵𝐸𝐻. 𝐵𝐸𝐻, who people who haven't even met him still speak of his vision and still speak of the influence that he has today on the UAE.
He was a charismatic leader, and he was a successful one. But above all, he was a deep humanitarian individual.
So 𝐬𝐻 was someone that we interviewed at his home. He's still very active. He's also the chancellor of UAE University. And we just had a real privilege to get his personal account of how the UAE was built, the values that drove it, and then the transformation and what he calls a miracle that made it what it is today, just 50 years later. Sultan al-Mansouri, former Minister of Economy, talks about the strategy and the different decisions that were made to put the UAE on a global scale. So to be able to speak to someone who was at that pivotal moment in that type of position, speaking about his personal experience, again, talking about pre-unification as a child, remembering the celebratory atmosphere right after, and discussing his own path, then leading the economic strategy of the country, is something that's really, really unique. And being able to conduct these interviews, I felt like I'm jotting down pieces of history that will forever be remembered and now accounted for.
Many of these interviews are the first time these people have spoken on camera about that experience.
What's unique and what you'll find in these interviews, you won't find online or at museums. You have Sultan bin Sulayem, who is synonymous with DP World. He's the chairman. He helped envision and execute projects like Palm Jumeirah, Jebel Ali Free Zone. And I guess a small spoiler, he speaks about how the Palm came to be. It was an idea initially thrown out very casually by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid.
Over lunch at a hotel.
Over lunch. He said it wasn't even the main topic of discussion.
He said, you are in the port. Find a way if we can build an island that can give us beaches.
How that led to a very simple sketch and drawing that later transformed into the Palm. It's a super challenging, complicated type of global project that takes international expertise, building an artificial island. And today, an artificial island that is one of the centers of Dubai and really makes up the aerial view. You cannot imagine Dubai without it. And he shares the story of how they went on an excursion to find the right type of sand. And I don't want to spoil it, but There are some really juicy parts there about how he almost sunk in deep sand, in quicksand, as they were looking for it, and someone saved his life.
It's a tremendous story, and I thoroughly recommend watching the program to find out more. The second program in the series is named NextGen, talking to the UAE nationals that will really take the country into the next 50 years of development. The children, in a way, of the people in Autobiography, not precisely, but metaphorically. How did you find them and their view? Because they grew up in wealth and success and are now tasked with making sure that that stays.
Exactly. So unlike Autobiography, where people really grew up in an area where there weren't paved roads, and they describe it as a desert where, for some, the main livelihood was fishing back then. So NextGen were born and grew up in already established Dubai. But what I find really interesting is the very young age that people are tapped to lead different industries in this country, and whether it's the trust that's instilled in them or being able to find the right talent.
And the beauty with our leaders is that they plant the seed of a vision, and they see the North Star, and then they give you all the trust to figure it out.
And so we interviewed people like the Minister of AI, who is the first AI minister in the world. Astronaut Sultan Al-Nayadi, who dreamt of going to space, but there was no space program when he started out. Upon his return from the International Space Station, a few months later, he's appointed as Minister of Youth. And this is not something that is unique. Everyone has a very interesting story of how they were tapped for their position. And speaking to them, you understand why they're the right people to lead whatever industry it is that they are leading. I think there's a tremendous emphasis on youth in this country. We also spoke with Shams Al-Falasi. She's the first Emirati woman to be the CEO and lead a major bank, Citibank. And this immediately will, maybe for us this is normal, but it really smashes many stereotypes that you'll find abroad.
She talks about, even since when she was a child, there was a strong drive for equality between the sexes in this country.
She talks about how she was very strategic. She doesn't actually talk too much about gender, but about her personal journey and how she always had her next goal in mind. And she knew she would need XYZ to achieve the next stage of her career. But by her following her passion and being very strategic, she has opened doors and dreams for many other Emiratis who didn't have the same type of role model, because she didn't when growing up. And another interesting thing with NextGen is hearing how each one came to their position. So with Sultan Al-Nayadi, it was actually an open call for the next Minister of Youth, and this was also done in the past. And he was chosen by the people in a way because Sheikh Mohammed tweeted saying the country is looking for its next Minister of Youth, and the name that kept popping up was Sultan Al-Nayadi. So that comes to show the involvement of the people and the voices of the country that also shape decisions and decision makers.
The programs are scattered with some wonderful photographs of these characters, either standing in front of the Houses of Parliament in London in the 60s, or walking in parts of Dubai that are now mega cities. It's very. How did you source all these pictures?
That's probably the most challenging part. Sourcing the pictures, finding archive footage. The cooperation from the guests themselves is very, very helpful. But I think it comes to show the importance of their experiences and how they realized even back then that these are moments that should be captured. You mentioned London, and it was Sultan al-Mansouri who mentioned an entire generation, and I think this still goes on, of youth who are sent to the UK during their summers to experience a different culture, which again contributes maybe to the very open and diverse DNA of Dubai. These pictures really capture the essence of the story that they're telling firsthand.
And of the 1960s. The show was
1960s, really incredible.
The third series is called Breaking Bread, where you meet some of the people that make Dubai and the UAE tick today. And you have a lovely conversation with them over a meal, breaking bread, in their favorite restaurants. Tell us about some of the more interesting ones to look out for.
I think everyone is in a very comfortable place. It's a comfort zone when you're at a restaurant, especially if it's one that you've chosen, which we really encouraged our guests to choose their restaurant of choice. And it's something so casual, right? Sharing a meal together. And so the type of conversations you have over a meal will typically be different in nature and very, very natural. What's interesting is to see the different people who've chosen to make Dubai their home, who call Dubai home. We have guests from radio host Chris Fade, who's now also a reality TV star. And then we have athletes who have decided to retire here. And of course, locals. We've also interviewed locals who have shaped different industries. 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞, the CEO of Fly Dubai, who tells the story for the first time of how Fly Dubai was born, how he was working at Emirates when he was approached by His Highness Sheikh Ahmed to lead this new company that Dubai saw a need for.
I remember my first instinct question. I said, Your Highness, this is like Emirates Light? And he said, no. This is going to be a separate company, airline. We incorporated in Emirates, so you can do whatever support. But once it's set up, it has to stand on its own feet.
So you get to hear stories that are very casual and told over a meal. And through that, you also get to experience a piece of Dubai, because when you go out in Dubai and when you go out to a restaurant, the choices are endless. And in most places, you look around and you say, hey, I could be anywhere in the world right now. You couldn't pinpoint where you are on the map. And that really is Dubai, a dynamic place that attracts people from all over the world, amazing culinary scene. It's no surprise that Michelin decided to come here. And so the people that agreed to be part of this experience really opened up in a way that they haven't before.
Simply, my family was based in Syria, and my parents decided to develop luxury and bring luxury French art de vivre to Syria, to Damascus. They were really in love with it.
Michelle, you've been living in Dubai about 4 years now.
Yes.
What surprised you most about conducting all these interviews?
It's not the interviews that surprise me. I think it's people with a professional hat who are willing to step out of their comfort zone, but at the same time get very comfortable. So when I moved here 4 years ago, it was still COVID. And I came here from New York. I was living in New York previously, and New York was shut down for a very long time. There was nothing going on. And the first thing you notice about Dubai is that life moves on. The industries are working. You have masks, but it's being managed. And I think that is really the story of Dubai and the UAE. When different regional events, wars, diseases made industries come to a halt, Dubai and the UAE decided to continue. And that's perhaps the reason it looks the way it does right now. It's probably the reason why aviation has done so well, the industries here in the UAE. And so these interviews were just a reflection of what I'd already experienced here in the country. But to be able to hear those very, I guess, intimate stories is something you cannot find anywhere unless you speak to the person who experienced it themselves.
Well, thank you very much, and we look forward to our passengers enjoying the Threes TV series and many more interviews to come, I hope.
Thank you, Patrick. Looking forward to flying Emirates.
Thank you for being on today's flight.